You're standing in a store looking at two nearly identical items. One is priced at $20, the other is $19.99. You know intellectually that the difference is 1 penny, 1 cent, a rounding error. But somehow, some way, that $19.99 price makes the item feel significantly cheaper. You find yourself reaching for the $19.99 option even though you know you're being manipulated, even though you've read articles about psychological pricing, even though you literally just thought to yourself, this is ridiculous, it's 1 cent. You still pick it. And as you walk to the register, you feel slightly annoyed at yourself for falling for the oldest trick in the retail playbook. My name's Minted Finance, and I spend way too much time thinking about how retailers use psychological pricing to manipulate your spending decisions in ways that cost you way more than you realize. If you're someone who knows about pricing tricks, but somehow still finds yourself making purchasing decisions based on them anyway, hit subscribe and give this video a thumbs up, because what I'm about to show you is going to make you realize that these 99-cent endings aren't just annoying, they're systematically costing you thousands of dollars a year. So let's talk about prices ending in 99. Specifically, let's talk about why they work, why they still work even when you know about them, and what's really happening in your brain when you see a $19.99 price tag. Because here's the thing, this isn't just some harmless marketing gimmick. It's a carefully researched psychological exploit that retailers have been perfecting for over a century, and it's way more sophisticated than most people realize. Here's what most people don't realize. The 99-cent pricing trick, which marketers call charm pricing, doesn't just make you think the price is lower. It fundamentally changes how your brain processes the value of what you're buying. And this happens even when you're consciously aware that you're being manipulated. Let me explain how this works, because the psychology here is both fascinating and infuriating. When you look at a price, your brain processes it from left to right, just like reading. So when you see $19.99, your brain anchors on that first digit, 19. It categorizes this as a teen's price, something in the $10 range, even though it's 1 penny away from $20. This is called the left digit effect, and study after study has shown that it's incredibly powerful. Researchers have found that products priced at $19.99 sell up to 24% more than the exact same products priced at $20. 24% for a 1 cent difference. Now look, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, that's not me. I do the math. I round up. I know $19.99 is basically $20. And consciously, you do. But here's where it gets interesting. Your conscious awareness of the trick doesn't actually protect you from it, because the left digit effect happens in a part of your brain that processes information faster than your conscious reasoning can override it. By the time you've consciously thought, this is basically $20, your brain has already emotionally categorized it as cheaper, and that initial impression influences your decision even if you know logically better. Let me show you the math on how much this is actually costing you. According to consumer research, the average American makes about 3 purchases per day. Could be coffee, lunch, gas, groceries, whatever. Let's say half of those purchases involve charm pricing. That's about 45 purchases per month. Now, studies have shown that charm pricing increases the likelihood of purchase by an average of 8 to 12%. Let's be conservative and say 10%. That means you're making about 4 or 5 extra purchases per month that you wouldn't have made if the prices were rounded to the nearest dollar. Let's say each of those purchases averages $25. That's $100 to $125 per month in purchases you made because of charm pricing. That's $1,200 to $1,500 a year. Over a decade, that's $12,000 to $15,000. And this is conservative. For a lot of people, especially people who shop frequently or make larger purchases, the number is way higher. But here's where it gets really interesting. Charm pricing doesn't just make you more likely to buy, it also changes how you perceive the value of what you're buying. When something is priced at $19.99 instead of $20, you don't just think it's cheaper, you think it's a better deal. You think the quality to price ratio is better. You're more satisfied with the purchase, all because of 1 cent. Researchers call this the perceived value distortion, and it means you're not just buying more stuff, you're buying stuff you wouldn't have considered a good value if it was priced differently. Now, you might be thinking, okay, Minted, but if I'm happy with my purchases, does it really matter that charm pricing influenced me? Fair question, but here's what most people don't realize. You're not actually happier with those purchases. You think you are in the moment, but studies that track satisfaction over time show that purchases influenced by charm pricing have the same regret rates as other impulse purchases. You're no more likely to still be using that item 6 months later. You're no more likely to consider it money well spent. The satisfaction is an illusion created by the same psychological trick that got you to buy in the first place. Let me give you some real examples of how this plays out. You're grocery shopping and you see two brands of pasta sauce. One is $3.49, the other is $2.99. Both are basically $3.50, but your brain sees the $2.99 as significantly cheaper because it starts with a 2 instead of a 3. You buy 4 jars of the $2.99 sauce instead of 2 jars of the $3.49 sauce, thinking you're getting a deal. You just spent $12 instead of $7 because charm pricing made you buy more than you needed. Or you're shopping online for a new jacket. You set your budget at $100. You find one you like for $99.99. Perfect, right? It's under budget. Except if it had been priced at $100 even, you probably would have kept looking because psychologically, $100 feels like you've hit your limit, but $99.99 feels like you're under your limit, so you buy it without continuing to shop around. You just spent $100 on the first jacket you found because charm pricing made it feel like you had room in your budget. Here's the psychology part that nobody talks about. Charm pricing works because of something called cognitive ease. Your brain is lazy. It wants to make decisions as quickly and easily as possible. When you see $19.99, your brain can quickly categorize it as cheap based on that left digit without doing the math. When you see $20, your brain has to work slightly harder because it's a round number that doesn't fit into the cheap category. That tiny difference in cognitive effort influences your purchasing decision more than you'd think. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Retailers have figured out that different endings work better for different types of products. 99-cent endings work great for everyday purchases, things you buy regularly or don't think too hard about. But for luxury items or high-ticket purchases, they actually hurt sales. When you're buying a car or a high-end watch or an expensive piece of furniture, $99.99 pricing makes the item feel cheaper in a bad way. They signal low quality or discount pricing. That's why luxury brands almost never use charm pricing. A Rolex doesn't cost $9,999, it costs $10,000 because round numbers convey quality, prestige, and confidence. The brand is saying this is worth $10,000, not $9,999, and your brain interprets that differently. You perceive the product as more valuable even though the actual price difference would be trivial. This is where it gets really interesting, though. Retailers have figured out to use this knowledge to manipulate you in even more sophisticated ways. They'll use charm pricing on their regular items to make them feel like deals, and round number pricing on their premium items to make them feel luxurious. So within the same store, you're being hit with two different pricing strategies designed to exploit different psychological vulnerabilities. The cheap stuff is priced to make you think you're getting a bargain. The expensive stuff is priced to make you think it's worth it. Now look, let me give you another example that's going to make you realize how deep this rabbit hole goes. Ever notice how gas prices always end in 9/10 of a cent? $3.49 and 9/10? It's absurd. You can't even pay that 9/10 of a cent. It has to get rounded. But gas stations do it anyway because that 9 at the end creates the same left digit effect. Your brain sees $3.49 and 9/10 and processes it as $3.49, which feels significantly cheaper than $3.50, even though the actual difference is 1/10 of a cent per gallon. And here's the thing, you're probably filling up your tank once or twice a week, and every single time this pricing is influencing where you decide to get gas. You'll drive past a station that's $3.50 to get to one that's $3.49 and 9/10, thinking you're saving money. But you just burned enough gas driving to the cheaper station to cancel out any savings. The charm pricing got you to make an irrational decision that actually cost you more money. Here's what most people don't realize. Charm pricing is just one tool in a massive psychological pricing toolkit that retailers use to manipulate your spending decisions. There's also prestige pricing, where things are priced higher to make them seem more valuable. There's penetration pricing, where new products are priced artificially low to get you hooked. There's anchor pricing, where they show you a really expensive option first to make everything else seem cheap by comparison. There's bundle pricing, where they combine items in ways that obscure the actual value of each component. And all of these strategies are backed by decades of research and millions of dollars in testing. Companies don't just randomly decide to price things at 99 cents. They have teams of data scientists and psychologists analyzing exactly which price points maximize revenue while making customers feel like they're getting value. You're not competing against a price tag. You're competing against a carefully engineered system designed to exploit the quirks of human psychology. Let me show you some action steps, because knowing about charm pricing doesn't automatically protect you from it. First, train yourself to always round up